I would say a little bit of a special session. So we're going to have just a talk by Mr. Rama Murthy. So I'm just going to add him.
I'm going to talk on the very specific Rocheston certified red or blue pen tester. This is very specific and very effective course which is being run initiated by Rocheston, and it does have multiple advantages where you can gain the access of the environment, which is not easy to create within a local environment. And thanks for Rocheston to share that kind of environment to do a testing or a deep level learning on pen testing. Okay, so let us start on the pen testing. What is pen testing, and simple objectives of what is pen testing, basic fundamentals of pen testing, vulnerabilities, how to do a pen test stages, report writing, defense, in depth basically, and do's and don'ts of pen testing. How frequently you do that testing, and what are the phases. These are all are the modules which I'm going to talk about at this moment within the time given to me, or within my limited time. And thank you, Rocheston, for inviting me to talk about within this cybersecurity conference with respect to the pen testing. So, gentlemen, very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to one and all across the globe who have joined this particular conference today. And let us start about the modules which I have spoke to or mentioned a bit earlier. So let us start with what is pen testing basically. So pen testing is actually checking the gaps within the environment where anyone can gain access of the organizational data or a personal data, probably related to bank details or mail details. It could be enterprise level or on a personal level, which might um, basically give them that access of all your details, whatever should not be shared, kind of. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And which is basically in a simple terminology we can say, like, gain unauthorized access basically. So with respect to the terminology of cybersecurity terminology, we can say it as unauthorized access, which is a security. And so these gaps probably will be created, these gaps will be created during the um, development of an application, probably implementation of an application. It could be from the network, it could be from the operating system level. So there are many phases where we can see, like, the gaps which might allow someone to gain access of your data, basically information. Instead of data, let us say it as information. So pen testing actually covers, like, the gaps or the vulnerabilities and the threats which have been posed by the gaps or the vulnerabilities, and the risk involved, probably in the application, as I mentioned, probably in the network, or probably in the web application, which can be utilized to exploit or gain access to the environment. So analysis actually depends on two mechanisms. One is vulnerability assessment, and the second one is pen testing. So uh, uh, in a simple term, so these within the current environment, we talk about both are instead of two different mechanisms, people say it is a simple one. So first of all, assessment should be done from the gap side within the environment, and once assessment is done, then the pen testing would be continued. So these are the two continuous things which will be happening, where many applications are there within the current environment, which actually helps you to complete the vulnerability assessment as well as the pen testing. Why pen testing? So this is one of the part which I have to, which I need to speak to. We know, what is a pen testing. Now we need to know why the pen testing is required, right? So the pen testing is required to safeguard the information for an enterprise, safeguard the information of the customer, probably employees, in-house employees, or the organizational information with respect to commercials, investing, kind of. And these are spread in different verticals, probably on the financial side, which is more and more posed risk within the pandemic phase, whichever is going on at this moment. And this is very essential. The pen testing, or the testing of the environment, vulnerability assessment and the pen testing is very important within the COVID pandemic situation at this moment, to see what is that information which is which is exposed, or which can be utilized to gain the access of the complete environment. So when we say this can, within the organization, everyone will be trying to make sure, they are safe, they are secure, their environment is secure. And sometimes during the when we talk about, more what I should say, the confidence, when the confidence level goes very up, so some basics would always be missed, and one or the other factors within the environment may be vulnerable, which can lead to gain access by an attacker, or a third threat actor, to take the data from the environment. So in order to take out that, the pen testing is required, or testing of the environment, assessment and testing is very much important within the financial sector. It is not only, it is only one vertical. When we talk about financial sector, it is only one vertical. There are many other verticals which talks about financials, commercials, and the sometimes, information related to investing, investors, for that particular organization, and all, etc., etc. Okay, so proactive pen testing is very much essential to actually save the environment from the threat actors. So if in case, actually, any application is already hacked, the organization wants to basically determine any other gaps are available, within the environment, to stop the future access from the third threat actors. Okay, so the now we know, why pen testing is required. Let us see, what are the types of pen testing, and then how that can be done in the coming time. So there are three types actually of a pen testing, and they are black box pen testing, and white box penetration testing, gray box penetration testing. The within the three types of pen testing, testing mechanisms, models. Um, One can be selected depends on the vertical you are looking at, and the scope, uh, where actually organization or the customer wanted to um, simulate an attack, probably by an in-house employee or a external threat actor, right? Now let us talk about what is the types of testing, right? Types of testing. We know that there are three types of testing now: pen testing, and let us understand a bit detailed in all the three types. Okay, black box. So let us start with black box. What is a black box pen testing? So within the black box pen testing, the tester basically will not be having any knowledge of the environment. He blindfoldedly look out for the complete environment to see where the vulnerability is available. And once the vulnerability is found, then he will start working on, like, how to gain access. To gain access, the next steps will happen basically. It's something very much depending on running on a road, closing the eyes. Gray box. So when we talk about the gray box, the next type is gray box. So when we talk about that, uh, the tester will be given some knowledge. See what kind of an application is available, what kind of operating systems are available, what kind of technologies has been used in that particular some of the applications. Is it a web application? Is it a regular application? These are the things which have been which will be provided along with the network infrastructure, organizational network infrastructure. So from there he will start, like, the again everything is going to be the same thing. Now the third thing is white box. So white box, in the white box we will have in the white box, the tester will actually be given with the complete knowledge of the environment. So how many applications are there? Each application is running on which operating system? What are the other web applications? What is the network in infrastructure? Complete details. So this is uh, this basically is considered as a internal employee simulation, or an attack done by an internal employee. So that's where basically these three types, one of the three types, or all the three types will be used to check the defense capability of that environment, and which will be in depth. Okay, the next is a vulnerability. What is a vulnerability? We were mentioning about vulnerability all the time. We know if we someone talked to probably a cybersecurity professional or someone, they'll say there are many vulnerabilities here. So basically, we need to know what is a vulnerability. Vulnerability is actually a weakness in the system, which can be utilized to exploit or gain unauthorized access, which impacts the confidentiality, integrity, and or availability, right, of anything. And these are, as I mentioned, these are created gaps while developing an application or implementing an application, which is not actually intended. So, and within the current environment, nothing, no system is, 100% secure. So, When we say 100% secure, every system can be exploited. Every system can be accessed. You can gain the access, unauthorized access from any environment. Means you cannot block everything. So pen testing will help you to create the defense, uh, probably in depth, to make sure all the gaps have been closed, kind of, right? Next, uh, um, every organization is created with different kind of security controls, different kind of security controls. So they often make the system less convenient. So um, the control, I mean, as long as, like, there are many system controls. For example, if you go to a Gmail or Yahoo Mail, they'll say, like, you can enable third party, you can enable authentication, multi-factor authentication. When you have, like, that is installed probably on your handheld device, which helps you to unlock the access on a different device which you would be trying to utilize. So these are all the things. These are all the security controls which I have mentioned. One. In an enterprise organization level, there will be many these kind of security controls will be very high, which actually makes the system inconvenient, along with the employees also inconvenient, and they'll also pose to uh, increase the difficulty to access that environment. So when that difficulty raises, the again, the usability, using that particular application or the accessing that particular environment will get a bit annoying basically. And this will actually pose to bypass the security controls. For example, in a simple terminology, it could be passwords. So every organization has a simple policy, or a security control to have, um, uh, you know a password which should be very long, and should be complex. um, Due to that complexity of that policy of creating the password, uh, uh, many users may write down the passwords on a paper, probably on a notepad in the system, probably on a notepad in a device, handheld device, kind of. So basically, balancing the security, functionality, and the usability is always, majority of the time, it's a challenge. And the goal actually should be to strike a proper balance. So these should be balanced. You need to have a good security in place, without deviating the functionality of that application or the accessibility. And along with it, it's also, like, usability of that particular environment should always be reasonably balanced, reasonably. And also the solution should be very secure, instead of annoying the user who wanted to use that application or something like that. Okay, so in the pen testing, um, now let us see, like, how to do a pen testing. uh, there are four phases of pen testing basically. One is the planning phase, for every activity, whatever you wanted to do, whether it is a pen testing, whether it is a security, creating a security control, um, or implementing anything. You need to plan well in advance, that what is my goal. what is that I wanted to do, what is that I wanted to achieve, how that is that can be achieved, and kind of. So for example, within the pen testing environment, like you need to jot, like scope, create a scope, and create a strategy, of the task you have defined for yourself, or your organization has defined for you. And within the while during the planning phase itself, see, like whether you have any existing security policies or any standards created, which can be utilized to define actually the scope. Next, once scope and strategies has been created, means in the planning phase, now next phase to discover it. So during this, we need to actually collect the information as much as possible from the environment. From the environment, uh, information probably could be, like related to system, related to the environment, operating systems, or the system application system, or user and passwords with respect to that particular application or the environment. And basically this terminology of what we do, what we I have mentioned, is called fingerprinting. Fingerprinting is collecting the information as much as possible related to system, related to username, related to passwords of that particular usernames. The complete thing is called fingerprinting. And once the printing is done, you need to start the scan. You need to find out the ports, probe the ports. Default by default, when we do the pen testing, we'll try to define the regular using ports. So instead of it, if like there are ports which can also be looked at. So um, other ports, apart from the regular ports, scanning is required, like within the particular environment, the scope of the network or the subnet of the network which is being utilized at this moment. Now start scanning the ports, open ports within the environment, and then probe to each of the port which have been opened from that. And then while doing that, you are actually checking for the vulnerability or a gap, probably through an application network, operating system, anything, during the discovery phase. So you have the information collected from the discovery phase, and now you will start working on the next phase, is attacking. Now I have the information from the discovery phase. Now what I need to do? Start attacking. The third phase is attacking. So you have already exploited vulnerabilities during the scanning and probing, and you know that these are the security controls, and these are the open ports. These are the security. These are the vulnerabilities which can be utilized to exploit the system, right? And the last phase of pen testing is reporting phase. So within that reporting phase, uh, uh, you create a report based on the discovery and attack. Um, um, you will actually create a report, generate a report. What is that it contain? It does contain the detailed information of the findings from the environment, right? And now, once the findings are accumulated, and the next step within the reporting phase is to find out, like, add risk or the vulnerabilities found. And the major pointer here is to add the impact of the finding with respect to the business, right? And once the impact, the impact on the business, once you have created the impact, or you have jotted that impact on the business from the vulnerability risk and all. Now, within the attack reporting phase, last pointer which you need to always remember is to work on the recommendations. Recommendations probably um, add some you need to use these kind of applications. This solution would be better to close the gaps whatever have been found on the environment or the vulnerabilities, kind of, right? So this completes the phases of pen testing. Next, now let us talk about a bit detailed about the phases what we have talked about. Now, planning and reconnaissance. You have defined the scope. You know what is that scope. The goal which you wanted to test. You know what are the systems which are required to be included for addressing the testing methods to be used. And the next thing is gathering the intelligence, probably the domain names, network names, mail server, to better understand how a target works. And gentlemen, 1 minute, please. Hey, sorry, apologies. I got some quick thing. Okay. Uh, while during, you need to gather the intelligence. So that is probably that needs to be added in the planning and the reconnaissance phase. Now, within that, next comes scanning of the complete environment. While through the scanning, you will actually understand how the application will react or respond to type of attempts, various attempts you do to access that application, which is a intrusion basically. And that is done actually through the dynamic analysis. So uh, the dynamic analysis is required to look at the application code, kind of an application code which is running, and in what state it is running, which is more basically practical way of scanning an application, which actually provides the real-time view on the application performance. Once the dynamic analysis is completed, we'll go with the static analysis. So within the static analysis, you would be inspecting the code, or the development code of that with respect to a specific application, to estimate the way it actually responds. um, uh, Basically it is a behavioral analysis basically, with respect to application is done, is can be estimated by inspecting the development code of that particular application. There are many tools which can scan the complete code of that application, probably in a single shot, in a single pass. So it is not that every application will do, but there are many applications in the internet which can be utilized to do the static analysis. in this particular stage, when we talk about this actually helps us to um, the, I'm sorry, my apologies. So this particular stage actually uses the web application attack to look at the cross-site scripting and probably an injection of SQL query or backdoor also can be um, checked to actually look out, open the vulnerability of a target application. And testers uh, testers will try and exploit these vulnerabilities, typically by escalating the privileges, stealing the data from that, and probably intercepting the traffic, etc. To understand actually the damage which can be caused during the actual you know hack, if anything happens. So that is gaining access basically, and the after gaining the access you need to maintain it. So the goal of the stage uh, uh, is to see the vulnerability which can be used to achieve a persistent presence in the system which is being exploited. This is the place where the threat actor will take the things to the next level to have that in-depth access of the environment. The idea actually is to initiate advanced persistent threat, whatever are there within the environment, which might be remaining in the system, which might be open for a very long time in the system, which is to take out the data of that organization, probably sensitive data. Um, and when we talk about this, so it is basically stealing, which is a very dangerous if the gap still persists. Once the results or reports are generated, these are compiled to create a final report with a detailed analysis of what is done with respect to specific vulnerabilities that are exploited, that were exploited during the session, and then the data which has been captured by coming out from the traffic, intercepting the traffic, the sensitive data which was accessed during the testing phase, and the time uh, uh, the time of presence within the system, the duration or time of presence within the system by the pen tester. These are all the detailed analysis which will be put it as detail. Okay. Now, prime task of the pen testing is like, it can be a one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-one or many-to-many. So these are the prime tasks which can be done, and then roles and responsibilities of the pen tester, or tester is required to collect more information with respect to organization and pen testing. The flaws that could allow the hackers to attack the target mission, and tester to think like, act a real like hacker, albeit ethically. Means knowing that what is the information you are taking out, and then what is that. Okay, these are the major responsibilities of a pen tester, and there is a manual pen testing. Is there automated pen testing? Is there? Um, okay, so these are like, think like a hacker to attack the system. That's the main part of it. So within the current environment, there is no environment which is basically not hacked. Every environment is hacked. So within this, I'm going to conclude it because of my time limitation. We talked about what is pen testing and the stages of pen testing. Now I'll talk about the frequency of pen testing. So basically, it is 6 months, which should be an organizational way to look at, like, do the things. And majority of the time within the current organizational structure, every 2 or 3 years, some of the organizations are doing pen testing within their environment. So with this, I'm concluding my presentation with respect to talk with respect to the pen testing. Thank you very much, Rocheston team, and all the people from across the world who are listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rama. I know you can't hear me, but despite all of the technical difficulties you had with a power cut and not having great signal, you still managed to come on and give us a talk. By the way, guys, Rama is an RCC trained engineer. He is trained personally by Mr. Haja. He is also a certified penetration tester because of RCCE. So, as he said, I suggest RCCE, definitely the best course in the world. We have 81 modules to be precise, and 250 cyber range exercises for you to practice once you take up RCCE. So again, Rama, I know you're not able to hear me. I'm sure they have questions, but then I can't really ask you because you can't really hear me. But thank you so much, Rama. That was amazing. And I'm going to hand the stage over to our next speaker. Thank you, Rama.